The South African Council of Churches says that heads must roll over the Johannesburg fire tragedy. The deadly fire at a hijacked building that belongs to the City of Johannesburg has left nearly 80 people dead. The SACC assisting victims to ensure their human rights are upheld as well. Let's get an update. We're joined by the SA Council of Churches General Secretary, Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana. Bishop, thank you for being with us. I understand you were on the scene in the aftermath of the fire. The Council of Churches, I'm sure, has been doing work in the inner city for years. Just give us some of your thoughts on the decline that we've seen and then this tragedy that ensued.
We are citizens of the inner city ourselves because our offices are in Marshalltown. So this is in our neighborhood. It's more than heads must roll. It's about saying, just what is it going to take to make the city center a place of choice for people? Because there are so many of these buildings that should not be used for human habitation. And they are all, we can have a fire every week at this rate. And so something has got to be done. And of course, you're dealing with two things. One is the need for housing, for cheap housing. People come in and occupy these places, very often paying the people that are criminals who are stealing their money. The second part is actually that of the criminals themselves, the so-called building hijackers. And I think that really, I don't know what it takes. I cannot imagine that it's too difficult to have a security force that goes block by block, street by street, one night, one weekend, and identify all these places and deal with them. I cannot imagine why this is so difficult. And of course, this is true.
May I stop you there? Because we've also tried to understand how it got to this point. There are laws about the city providing alternative housing, and it seems like for years it hasn't been able to do that. And it had identified the buildings years ago, but then we've had politicking and different administrations coming in and out, not following on the work that was done to identify the work. Just correct me if I'm wrong. You're not calling for any sort of conciliation here. You're saying that the people in the Joburg City Council who are negligent or incompetent must go. Is that correct?
I am saying the city must take responsibility. I don't even know who's responsible. I'm saying that the city must take responsibility. I was talking to the speaker the other day, and I was saying, it's not about us praying, because there's no need for prayer on this. We can pray for the victims. But the situation itself is not going to go away because of prayer. It's going to go away because there's a much more efficient management of the property of the city.
What are the human rights issues you are concerned about? I understand you're following to see that the people who were affected, their rights are upheld.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And of course, we spent quite a bit of time with those that refused to go to the shelter for all kinds of different reasons. Some of them are injured and hurt, and they really need attention. And it was heartbreaking to see the children who are on their mother's laps and they need attention, and there isn't enough of that. And so, yes, we think that it's a human right thing. The humanitarian thing, we need to make sure that they're taken to shelters and taken care of. But the rest of the things must be about ensuring that we don't have any more of this disaster, because, as I say, it can happen every week at this rate.
Yeah. Why did people not want to go to this shelter? We understand some were concerned if they are immigrants, that could lead to issues for them, deportations.
Yes. There's a story of one of the people that were already at the shelter who, when they saw the Home Affairs vehicle, they tried to jump over the fence and got injured. Yes, there are those that fear for the law. Look, what we're saying now is that the humanitarian work must take precedence over what is legal and what is not legal. But then once that is taken care of, people are in secure environment, then you can deal with the legal issues, because that still has to be done. So I don't think that the two are in contradiction, but you cannot, in a state of disaster, lead with whether a person has got papers or not. But even if they did have papers, those papers would have been to the building anyway. So there's a whole lot of work that has to be done before you get to sifting between who's legal and who's not. There are many of them that are legal, and there are also very many who are not legal. And that's probably the reason why they do not want to go to the shelter.
Tell us about, were you involved in the religious walk on Wednesday, a number of efforts? Do you feel the concern from the people at the city who could make some changes?
Yeah, well, the walk on Wednesday was occasioned because, the SACC president, Archbishop Makoba, and I wanted to have a review since the previous time we were there, after this incident had happened. We wanted to find out what the status was at this point. So it's kind of like an update visit. And of course, prayer is something we do all the time. But the primary reason was to see where things were. And for this reason, we called the office of the speaker and asked for the facilitation of our visit. And that's how we were able to then talk to the people that have not moved away to the shelter. We also visited the shelter to see what the conditions were, as well as, of course, brought whatever supplies we could bring. But the key thing here is to say, what are the systemic things that need to be in place? And that's really what we're monitoring.